Imagine a country that, in just a few decades, transformed itself into a global powerhouse, a place where technology is part of everyday life. Education is among the best in the world, and trends in makeup and fashion often start right there. After all, everyone wants to look as good and dress as well as the Koreans. And it doesn't stop there. South Korea has also taken the film and TV industry by storm with K-dramas like Bloodhounds, True Beauty, and Business Proposal, productions that have captivated audiences worldwide and made the country shine even brighter on the global stage. But let's get real for a second. Not everything in South Korea is as perfect as it seems in the dramas. Behind that charming image, the country faces a serious problem. It has some of the highest suicide, anxiety, and depression rates in the world. So how can a country that's achieved so much, with so many innovations and successes, also be one of the saddest places on the planet? What's really hiding behind these alarming mental health statistics? To understand why South Korea is going through such a mental health crisis, we need to look at its past. Don't worry, no boring history class here, I promise. The country went through a series of brutal shocks that shaped everything it is today. First, imagine being under Japanese rule for 35 years. It wasn't just tough, it was a time of deep suffering, repression, and loss. And just when they thought they could finally breathe again, the Korean War broke out, splitting the nation in two and taking millions of lives. Now think about what that does to a country. Having to rebuild everything from scratch, all while constantly living under the threat that war could return at any moment. Under this constant pressure, South Korea had to reinvent itself fast or risk disappearing altogether. That's when the so-called miracle on the Han River began, a period of explosive economic growth between the 1960s and 1990s that turned South Korea from a war-torn nation into an industrial and tech powerhouse. During that time, authoritarian governments imposed strict rules but invested heavily in technology, exports, and infrastructure. It was during this era that giants like Kia, SK Group, and Lotte began to rise. These companies are well known in Korea, and many started expanding globally. But none of it would have been possible without a population that was deeply disciplined, hardworking, and driven, all backed by tough economic policies and an unshakable will to survive and succeed. But like every hard-earned victory, this so-called miracle came at a cost. The intense pressure to be the best, to never fail, became deeply ingrained in South Korean culture. It's a historic weight that still burdens people today. This relentless race to the top, born out of the need to survive, helps explain much of the country's current mental health struggles. In South Korea, the obsession with perfection doesn't stop at school. It seeps into every corner of life. From a very young age, children are thrown into a world where excellence isn't just encouraged, it's demanded. By the time they're 6 or 7, many are already facing exhausting study routines, all to prepare for a future where the competition is unforgiving. This constant pressure shapes a win or lose mindset, where any failure feels like total defeat. And then there's the cultural concept of nunchi, the subtle art of sensing and responding to others' emotions. It may sound graceful, but in practice, it often leads young people to constantly monitor themselves, trying to meet social expectations, usually at the expense of their own mental health. And it doesn't end with education. In the workplace, extreme dedication is expected. Long hours that stretch well beyond reason are the norm. Corporate culture tends to prioritize obedience and productivity over individual well-being, creating an environment where burnout is not just common, it's almost expected. This social pressure also affects personal relationships. The constant need to maintain a perfect image pushes many to hide their inner struggles, which only adds to the growing rates of anxiety and depression. So while South Korea shines on the outside, with global influence in tech, entertainment, and style, it faces a silent mental health crisis, especially among its younger generations. In a society that idolizes perfection and success, failure becomes something you just can't afford. This reality is captured in the rise of the Sampo generation, young people choosing to give up on relationships, marriage, and even having children in order to escape the overwhelming pressures of modern life. In the end, South Korea is a country of striking contrasts. It dazzles the world with innovation and culture, yet struggles quietly with serious internal challenges related to mental health and well-being. Recognizing and addressing these issues is crucial to building a more balanced and compassionate society. One K-drama that captures all of this in a powerful way is Asterisk Daily Dose of Sunshine. It shows exactly how this all-or-nothing mentality wears people down, leaving them exhausted and, many times, hopeless. It's a true masterclass on how social pressure can be just as devastating as any illness, and how it often drives those who most need help into complete silence. And now, to fully understand what can happen when someone lives under this pressure for most of their life, as many already do in Korea, let me tell you a story. It's about a guy named Akira Tendo. He had always dreamed of working at an ad agency that produced commercials for big brands. He imagined it would be the kind of place where he could shine, make friends, and feel proud of his work. And when he finally landed that dream job, he truly believed life was about to get amazing. But reality had other plans. At first, everything feels exciting. The energy is intense, the pace is fast, and it's like everyone is a soldier on a mission to win. But soon, the excitement turns into exhaustion. His boss is abusive, always demanding more, pushing harder. The workday? It never really ends. He starts seeing his co-workers sleeping in the office, wrapped in blankets, passed out at their desks. They practically live there. The schedule is so insane that Akira doesn't even have time to cook. He survives on vending machine snacks, soda, coffee, whatever's quick. His home becomes a mess, cluttered, abandoned. His face grows pale, with dark circles that never fade. He tries to hold on, but the pressure is crushing. Little by little, his entire life shrinks down to just one thing: the office. Every day is another battle to be perfect, to never make a mistake. Until one day, Akira realizes the truth. He's become a zombie, trapped in an endless cycle going nowhere. But here's the plot twist. All of that, it's just the first episode of an anime called Zom 100. And even though it's fun and light on the surface, it paints a painfully real picture of what many young Koreans go through every single day. Because in South Korea, this culture of perfection, of working non-stop, never failing, never resting, goes way beyond fiction. And it's not just the workplace. Esports have played a major role in spreading this mindset of extreme competitiveness and discipline. Young players spend endless hours training, always pushing to reach the top of the leaderboard. And that mindset didn't stop there. It began to spread into other areas, like K-pop, where perfection isn't just a goal, it's the standard. And even into the broader work culture, where any mistake is treated like a failure. It's as if the whole society has turned into one giant tournament, where just showing up isn't enough. You have to win, no matter what. And that leaves us with one big question hanging in the air. How far can this obsession with being the best really go? Is it truly worth the toll it's taking on people's mental health? Just look at South Korea. The country has become a symbol of modernity and innovation, building cities that look straight out of a sci-fi movie, setting trends that dominate global runways, and producing dramas that captivate screens all over the world. But behind that glossy image of luxury and technology, there's another side most people never see. On one hand, you have people living in towering skyscrapers, buying designer clothes that cost more than many people's monthly salaries. On the other, there's an entire generation struggling just to afford the basics. Because today, owning a home or starting a family feels almost impossible. The saddest part? This generation grew up being told that if they just studied hard enough, worked long enough, they'd have it all. But now, when they look around, they realize that promise of a stable, comfortable life was just that, a promise. And so, inequality became the elephant in the room. Everyone sees it, everyone feels it, but few know how to escape this never-ending race, where no matter how fast you run, it always feels like you're falling behind. At some point, we have to stop and ask, is it really worth sacrificing our mental health just to chase financial security? In South Korea, the belief that money and success are the keys to happiness has become almost a way of life. But what happens when, despite working yourself to the bone, studying until the middle of the night, success always stays one step ahead, just out of reach? That frustration is no small thing. People push themselves to the limit, expect more and more from themselves, and still feel like it's never enough. Mental health becomes the first casualty because the priority is always the same. Earn more, climb higher, don't fall behind. And this isn't just a Korean story. This race for money and status is everywhere. But in South Korea, it's taken to a level that seems to crush even the smallest breath of hope. Many simply stop dreaming altogether, as if wanting anything beyond money is too dangerous. But I believe there's a way to find balance, at least for a while. I know sometimes we have to work 15 hours a day or study like there's no tomorrow. But I also believe it only makes sense if it's for something bigger, a goal that's worth the effort, and that comes with an end point. Because in the end, life needs a little bit of dreaming to still be worth it, right? And what about you? What do you think about all of this? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, I know I've already talked a bit about this suffocating work culture through Akira's story, but let me go a little deeper into that right now. Beyond all the social pressure, from family, friends, and even from within, young South Koreans also face a corporate environment that borders on the absurd. South Korea has one of the toughest work cultures in the world. We're talking about endless work hours, rigid hierarchies, and a way of working that drains every last drop of autonomy and creativity. In practice, this means one thing. Many people don't leave the office until their boss does, even if the workday ended hours ago. If your boss stays until 10 p.m., you stay too. And complaining? Not an option. It's a system built on near-blind loyalty, where questioning a superior's decision is seen as disrespectful. There's no room for fresh ideas, let alone an honest, open conversation between equals. And the worst part? This extreme level of dedication doesn't just come from people who love their job or want to rise through the ranks. It's a social obligation. You're expected to give up your hobbies, your friendships, and often even your health, as if being a real person with limits, passions, and a life outside the office simply isn't allowed. With this crushing routine, people's social lives start to fade. Many simply don't have the energy to form real connections. And when they do meet up with friends or coworkers, the conversations often feel superficial, just a performance to keep up appearances. The result? A deep, persistent loneliness, the perfect breeding ground for anxiety and depression. And the numbers speak for themselves. In 2023, South Korea recorded a suicide rate of 27.3 deaths per 100,000 people, the highest among all OECD countries. Suicide is the leading cause of death for South Koreans aged 10 to 39. Among teenagers, 43.7% of all deaths are due to suicide. That number rises to 56.8% for people in their 20s, and then slightly drops to 40.6% for those in their 30s. But there's another layer that makes this situation even worse: the stigma. Despite all this pressure, talking about mental health is still almost taboo. For many Koreans, admitting to depression or anxiety feels like confessing weakness, like you've failed to stay strong. There's this deeply rooted belief, heavily influenced by Confucian ideals, that you must endure everything in silence. And if you've reached your breaking point, it must mean you simply didn't try hard enough. So it's no surprise that only 7% of people struggling with anxiety or depression in South Korea actually seek treatment. 7%. Most suffer in silence, afraid of being judged. Even at home, it's hard. Many parents still see their children's depression as laziness or a lack of willpower, rather than a serious condition that needs attention. And that creates a vicious cycle. The person feels more and more isolated, and their mental health continues to spiral. It's heartbreaking, but this culture still swallows a lot of people whole. The good news? Some influential voices, psychologists, artists, and even a few politicians have started speaking out. They're showing that asking for help isn't something to be ashamed of, and that mental health has nothing to do with weakness or lack of character. Little by little, the conversation is opening up and the stigma is starting to crack. But let's be honest, change is slow, very slow. And in the meantime, many Koreans turn to other forms of escape, like an obsession with beauty and the pursuit of a perfection that only deepens the emptiness inside. And that brings us to another delicate issue: the obsession with appearances and consumerism in South Korea. The country has become almost synonymous with plastic surgery. Walk through Seoul, and you'll see aesthetic clinics on almost every corner. And we're not just talking about a little touch-up. These are procedures that completely reshape people's faces. South Korea leads the world in surgeries like double eyelid operations, rhinoplasties, and jawline reconstructions. And of course, there's the explosion of Korean beauty and skincare brands that have taken over the global market. At first glance, it all seems fine. Beauty and self-care, what's wrong with that? But behind this relentless pursuit of aesthetics lies something much deeper and much more troubling. In a place where your worth is measured by your looks and your bank account, the pressure to be flawless is overwhelming. And when someone feels like they don't fit that standard, the result is a deep sense of not belonging. That's when the surgeries, the designer clothes, the luxury cars come in, not just as status symbols, but as attempts to fill a void that can't be seen in pictures. But even after reaching that perfect standard, after buying the most expensive car, the latest phone, or showing off luxury vacations on social media, happiness often still doesn't come. And that's the great contradiction: a country overflowing with material wealth, but still carrying a massive emotional void, a sadness that hides beneath stylish outfits and high-end procedures. But not all hope is lost. Despite the suffocating culture and the endless pursuit of status, Koreans have something no one can take away: the strength to rebuild. They've endured wars, occupations, massive crises, and still managed to rise from the ashes. Today, the challenge isn't about rebuilding buildings or the economy. It's about rebuilding minds and hearts. And the younger generation is starting to make noise. They're speaking more openly about mental health, questioning societal pressures, and searching for a way to balance success with well-being. No, change won't happen overnight. But the fact that the conversation has started, that alone gives us a little hope. And if there's one thing I truly believe, it's that Korea has the strength to overcome this too. They've reinvented themselves before, and they'll find a way to deal with this crushing pressure. And maybe, just maybe, the rest of us will learn something from their journey. Something about how to balance our own dreams with our mental health. What do you think about all this? Drop your thoughts in the comments.